Let's get back to housing, because those latest housing numbers that came out this morning do suggest more trouble for anyone trying to sell their house. Home prices dropped more than forecast in October, and that's raising fears of a double dip in housing. Let's go now to John Erlichman. He's standing by in Toronto with more on those numbers. John?
Yeah, the headline number, Scarlett, the decline of 0.8% was 4 times what was estimated on Wall Street. One of the reasons people like this Case-Shiller index is because it arguably gives you a better feel for demand in the housing market than sales numbers like existing home sales and housing starts. Pricing, a very important part of the demand story. We know that there is a lag with this data. This is October data, and we're almost in January now. Still some great perspective on these numbers today from Josh Shapiro of MFR, the economist, who highlights that in the 7 years leading up to the peak in this Case-Shiller index, you saw an increase of about 155%. And in the 52 months since then, we've seen a decline of 30%. In other words, the pain has not been fully reflected in pricing, and that gets us to this idea of whether or not we see a double dip. The flip side to that argument, Scarlett, is if you look at what's been going on with existing home sales, it's not as if we've seen some huge spike up that would suggest that you're all going to see a big dip below. A lot of people say we've been just bouncing around the bottom.
All right, John, what about when you break it down city by city? What kind of trends are we seeing there?
And you can always spin these numbers any way you want. What was interesting is that year over year, you did see some increases in a number of markets in California, like Los Angeles and San Diego and San Francisco, Washington as well. But a lot of economists prefer to see the trend that's happening month over month, and that's where there's been some discouraging trends that you've seen some weakness across the board for the last few months. September to October was no exception, and some of the cities that were hardest hit with declines of more than 2% included Atlanta and Detroit. Scarlett?
Atlanta and Detroit still feeling some pressure on the housing front. Thank you.